We are back with another investment tier list for Jujutsu Kaisen Phantom Parade. So this tier list is a tier list for which characters you should invest in first. Not a tier list for who's the best, but a tier list for who you should be upgrading, who you should be leveling up, who you should be investing in their skills, because those are the characters that are going to carry you. So since they decided to drop 4 characters in one freaking week, we are doing this again. I just did this video like a week ago, and it's absolutely crazy that I have to do it again because there's that many characters being added to this tier list. But on the bright side, it does give me a chance to move one character that I severely underrated the last time I did this tier list. I got a lot of comments about it. I did read the comments. I saw how many likes the comment had as well, and so I'm going to fix that placement for that character. Which character am I talking about? I am, of course, talking about Miwa. Miwa right now is down here in the don't invest tier, and that is completely unfair. I agree with you guys. So why am I going to move Miwa up? Let me show you. Her skill 1, Nukitsuke, if I'm saying that correctly, deals melee combined damage equal to 50% taijutsu and jujutsu to the selected enemy. Having both types of damage is very solid. Level 10, it goes up, obviously, but that's not why I really like her. Why I really like her is her skill 2 and her skill 3. Her skill 2, Wholehearted, grants evasion status to self for 2 turns 1 time, and attracts all enemy attacks for 2 turns. Increases own taijutsu damage by 20% as well for 2 turns. The taijutsu damage doesn't really matter as much, but being able to attract enemy attacks for 2 turns is pretty dang solid. And then the skill 3, New Shadow Style Simple Domain, grants counter status to self for 2 turns. Now, the only thing that would make her better, and not like just an SR version, but you know, closer to an SSR version, is if this skill had both the draw aggro and the counter, right? That would be better, because look at the cost on the energy, right? 30 energy, 30 energy. It's hard to use these skills simultaneously. It's almost like you have to pick one, either have the counter or have the ability to draw aggro. So that's a little bit rough, but her auto skill kind of helps make up for that. And I'll explain that when we get down there. And then her ultimate, New Shadow Style, Simple Domain, Bado Sword Drawing. Okay, deals melee combined damage equal to 175% taijutsu and 175% jujutsu to the selected enemy. So once again, having both types of damage is pretty good. Not the most damage, but having both is nice. And also counter status, I forgot to mention that. When targeted by an enemy's melee attack 1 time per turn, it is limited. Deals 66% of combined damage equal to 65% taijutsu and 65% jujutsu as counter damage. And then last but not least, her auto skill, Preparation for Interception. At the start of each wave, attracts a random enemy's attack. So at the beginning of a wave, you can probably pop your skill 3 first and feel okay if you're able to use your skill 3 on turn 1, because you are drawing aggro of at least one enemy, and if there is only one enemy, then you'll draw aggro and you'll be able to counter them right away. So she's actually pretty good for single target like enemies and fights. She would be actually fairly decent for that. So Miwa definitely does not deserve to be down here in the don't invest tier, because if you need a decent tank, she's there. She's a decent tank. Not as good as some of the others, right? Like Panda, still going to be better tank. Gojo up here is going to be a better tank, right? So we'll put her in the light investment. She'll move up 1 tier. Now, in terms of where I'm going to put her, I probably put her like either right here or right here. I think she has more value, honestly. Nah, actually, she has more value than these characters. She's like right here. Yeah, that feels good. That feels good. Like Saki draws aggro, but she's just not as good with the counter, right? She doesn't have the counter. She has damage reduction, but no counter. Miwa has the counter. I just don't necessarily like the way how she draws aggro and has the counter on 2 separate skills, but she can draw aggro on turn 1. So I feel like that allows her to do the counter as well and puts her up here where she's at. And that's a little bit more valuable than some of these other characters below her. I feel like that's a fair placement, kind of middle of the road for light investment. As a character who can draw aggro and tank, I feel like that's fair, right? Hopefully you guys are okay with that. And once again, the don't invest tier is not ordered like the other tiers. These other tiers are in order of characters you should invest in. So like number 1 right now should be Yuta, then you have Blue Gojo, then you have Megumi, so on and so forth. And now we're going to add in these other 4 characters. for where they belong. So the new Agile Body Itadori, I know not a ton of people got him, but some people did, including myself. So how worth it is it to invest in him? Honestly, he's a very decent character who has both attack skills and he has the ability to buff your allies' damage when he uses his ultimate, as well as his own damage for the following turns. And so because of what he can do, it's very similar to like Geto. I would put him, honestly, it's hard to say if Geto's better or him. I'm going to put him above Geto for right now for worth investing in. I do think he's better than his green counterpart. I think he's slightly better than Geto, just because the green the green counterpart is mainly like a character who has to buff himself over and over again and then just does black flashes on his ultimate. This Itadori doesn't have to do the same thing. He's able to just, kind of do his thing. So I'm going to put him up here at the top of worth investing in. I do think he is pretty dang good. Now, before I go too much further, I think I'm going to move one character down potentially. And I think that is going to be Nobara. I think Nobara has to come down to like right here now. I think that Itadori is above Nobara. And she's good damage, but she needs the nail stacks and stuff like that to actually maximize her damage. It takes a few turns to be able to maximize that damage. You have to play her a certain way, so it makes it a little bit harder to use her. So I feel like that's a little bit more fair now, putting Nobara down to worth investing in. I still think she's really good. I just think Itadori is, slightly better in terms of like being able to get that immediate damage and immediate buffs for your team and stuff like that. Next up, we have Nishimiya. Nishimiya is hands down one of the best supports in the game. A very high investment character. And honestly, if I'm going to place her, I'm going to place her like... we like Megami because Megami is a good damage dealer and support. But Nishimiya is just that important to the game, and she has the evasion that helps her out. And not only does she have like damage support, she has crit support if you want to use it. So she has two types of support, and you can choose which one you want to use. Additionally, she has a stun on her ultimate, and she lowers ultimate gauge. Like she may not do 4-turn buffs like Yaga, right? And she may not do damage like Megami, but she has too much in her kit. She has literally too much going on, which is insane, because you can just pick and choose what type of buffs you want depending on the circumstance, and that's what makes this character so good. So I would put her as a very high investment priority, a very, very good character. Next up, we have Kamo. Kamo is an interesting character. I don't want anybody to get mad at me for where I place him, so I want to go over his kit with you guys for this particular character, because it's a kit that probably a lot of you guys haven't seen, being that he's not a featured character. Nobody really knew about him till last minute. So when Flowing Red Scale state deactivates, increases own damage received. That's an L already. Skill 1 is called Tiger Claw, deals 100% melee taijutsu damage to the selected enemy. If you're in Flowing Red state, you get an extra 15.8% damage. Like, it's okay. Right, at level 10 it's 21%, it's not that much. Skill 2, Flowing Red Scale, increases own taijutsu damage by 30% and jujutsu damage by 25%, activates the Flowing Red Scale for 3 turns, and recovers own cursed energy by 5 every turn for 3 turns. Regenerating, this is like his best skill. Regenerating cursed energy is good, giving extra jujutsu and taijutsu damage is good, right? But the Flowing Red state, when it does go away, that is a little bit rough. At level 10, the percentages increase. And then skill 3, Slicing Exorcism, deals 135.2% ranged jujutsu damage to the selected enemy. During Flowing Red scale status, change skill effect into deal 135.2% ranged jujutsu damage to all enemies. So being able to AoE is nice, but it's still the same amount of damage percentage. And then even when you level it up to 10, it's not a very high percentage of damage. For a character who is supposed to be a taijutsu physical technique attacker, he doesn't have the highest like stats, which is a little bit rough. And then his ultimate is Piercing Blood, deals 830% ranged jujutsu damage to the selected enemy. If you are in Flowing Red scale state, increases own damage that you inflict on them by 30%, right? At level 10, it just increases to 1,352%, which is okay, but there's other characters that have 1,500%. Gojos have 2,000%, right? So it's an okay amount of damage. It's not anything too crazy. You can increase it by 30%, so that gives you an extra 30% right there. But even then, I'm not super crazy about the ultimate damage either. So basically, it's a character who does a bunch of damage, no auto skills, right? And you to really get the full effect of his damage, you have to be using the flowing red scale. Otherwise, he's just kind of a really, really subpar character. And then there's the disadvantage of when your red scale goes away, you take more damage. So it's a character with like subpar attack, very specific conditions to use the full extent of his attack, and then the downside of taking more damage when you lose the red scale. So he's not a great character. Realistically, he's just not a great character. So for that reason, I'm gonna put Kamo in light investment. I do think he is a better damage dealer probably than most of these other characters, right? Has more value than like her as a tank, more value than well, technically she's a tank, but a attacker. It's weird, but yeah, he has more value than them. I can't really say that he has more value than Maki. I mean, he's probably about on par with Maki. I still think this Megumi might even be better. Honestly, I don't know though. I'm going to put him right there because I feel like that's fair. It is fair to invest in him lightly, but I probably wouldn't go beyond that. And then last but not least, we have Hollow Purple Gojo. Now, before we hop into that, I do just want to point out the reason that Hanami and Jogo are where they are, in case you missed the last video, is simply because people cannot get these characters yet, or at least not get them easily. So that is why they're at the bottom. Not saying that they are the least worth investing in, right? Because technically, if I was to say, you know, invest in this character, Hanami would be a lot higher on this list right here. But we just have them at the bottom because simply you can't invest in them, so they're not worth investing in compared to the rest of the characters. It's more important to invest in these characters because you can get them now immediately as compared to these free-to-play SSRs. Eventually, you know, when we have more Phantom Metal collection availability, these characters will move up on the list for investment. Okay, now going back to the original point of Hollow Purple Gojo. He is insanely good, like very, very good. However, I don't necessarily recommend highly investing in him as much as like Yuta and or Gojo. Yuta is really good because he can do AoE attacks, he can do the healing, he has the counter, and he doesn't go away like Gojo. This Gojo goes away after 7 turns, has insane attacks, has an AoE ultimate, right? Is very, very good. That's why they're both up here. Now, Hollow Purple Gojo is similar to Blue Gojo in the sense that he does have an AoE attack that does massive damage. However, when he does his ultimates, he leaves the field. That is the rough part. So he either leaves at 7 turns or he leaves the field when you ult. Now, because of that, I do think he is simply, actually, he's going to go as high as he is. I'll show you where I'm putting him. I'm putting him right here. He's going here simply because he is essential for clearing Illusory Tower, in my opinion. Like, yes, you can clear some of the stages if you really, really try, but if you want to make Illusory Tower like stages 20 through 25 so much easier, you need this character. And basically what you're doing is you're just buffing the crap out of him up until his ultimate turn when you decide to ult with him, and then you're praying that you nuke the enemy in 1 turn. That's what this character does. He is a 1-turn nuke character, and he's very, very good at it. But outside of 1-turn nuking, if you take him into multiple waves, he's not worth investing in as much as these other 3 characters above him. Like, I might almost argue Megumi would be above him, but because he is so essential for Illusory Tower, I am going to say that he is above Megumi. And a lot of people might say he's above Nishimiya, but Nishimiya just has more versatility and the overall content, so I feel like she's more worth investing in, which is why she is above Hollow Purple Gojo. But hopefully that makes sense to you guys why I'm putting him there. He is highly worth investing in for the sense of Illusory Tower and for having a character who can do a 1-turn nuke, but if there's multiple waves, he's not going to be as useful of a character for multiple wave content. And that is the new investment tier list for, I want to say the month, but who knows what characters are coming out the rest of the month. But that is the new investment tier list for right now. Whenever we get more of these characters, a couple more, I will do another investment tier list. I'll try to keep you guys updated on which characters are your top priority investments, especially for people that are new to the game or anyone who might have just pulled a new character. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider going down there, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, and peace.